Hi everyone, Sue Matsuki here for Nightlife Exchange with another Sue's Muse. Today I have not only a muse, I have what I consider a New York icon on the program today. Please welcome the one and only Billy Stritch. Hi Billy.
Hi there, icon, huh? All right, I'll
Yes,
take
you are. You are indeed.
it.
I mean, come on. You are the MD to the stars. Cheetah, Liza, Tony, Christine Ebersol, Sally Mays, and your beloved Linda Lavin. How
Yes.
did how did that start to happen? Obviously, Liza was one of your first, but how did you
Yeah.
kind of get to all these great ladies? And
Well, I mean, I had made some connections in New York because in the '80s I was working with a vocal group called Montgomery Plant and Stritch. So
did
even though we
Liza
were,
see you in Europe doing that, or did she see you here?
she never saw the group. But
Oh,
the point is that I had made some New York connections by that, even though we were all from Texas. By the time we broke up, that's when I really decided New York was for me and I needed to move here full time. And so I did. And that was the beginning of 1991. And I kind of I didn't quite know what the next move was, but my friend Bob Nahas owned a restaurant on Theater Row called Bobo's. And he said, well, come and play at my piano bar a couple nights a week. So I've told this story a lot, but I started working there in mid-January. And I would go in, and more often than not, the night I would go in, Bob would say, "Oh, Liza was here last night. You just missed her," you know. So I knew that she was in the habit of going there, and actually, she's a close friend of Bob's too. So uh, one of those nights on it was actually March 7th, because it's a date you just don't forget. She
hmm.
happened to pop into the restaurant, and she ended up at the piano bar because I played a song from one of her father's movies, The Bad and the Beautiful, a beautiful theme song, and I
Yeah.
think that definitely impressed her that I didn't play New York, New York, or
Right, right.
Cabaret or something really obvious. And so she came over and introduced herself like she needed to do that, and sat next to me on the piano bench. And as I say, to wrap it up, we didn't leave each other's side for 25 years. So that really started me with the, I mean, where do you go from there? But that started me with the playing for really well-known singers. That was the beginning of that. And that was 91. And that's sort of in my stock and trade, even though I love to do my own shows and feature myself more as a singer and a solo artist. My main thing is accompanying and collaborating. I love that.
And has one of these delicious divas referred you to another, or is it just that they've seen you play with
Um,
someone and just said, "Hey, why don't we do something together?"
I think, well, I got the Linda Eder gig because she had seen me with Marilyn May.
I see.
That's the one instance I can remember that happening. And I had heard Linda Eder before. I certainly knew she was, but Marilyn and I happened to be doing shows in Provincetown the same summer Linda was. So she came to our show. We went to her show. We all had dinner together at the Lobster Pot one night. And David Fink was her bass player, is still. He was my first bass player when I did my first solo act way back in '92. And so there was a mutual connection there. So when Linda was looking for a sub in probably 2019, there were a couple of shows that her regular guy, Billy Stein, couldn't do. So I ended up subbing. And then after COVID, Billy, the other Billy, I like to call him, he has a huge career designing sound and designing keyboard sounds and music for almost every Broadway show you can think of. So he told Linda gracefully that he was really going to bow out of the touring thing, and so she maneuvered her way over to me, and we've been working together now. I feel like it's going to be 5 years in September.
I
So,
think, yeah, because I saw you guys in Chicago. I was doing a gig in Chicago at Davenport's, and I saw you. I came to your show there, I believe.
right.
And then you
Oh,
brought it to 54 Below. And I remembered saying to you that, I've seen Linda I'm a big fan of Linda Eder and loved her with the other Billy. But you brought something out in her that was different. And I really noticed it. There was a calm with you, her, between the
right.
two of you. And it was like you had been working together for 40 years. It just was really
Oh,
a
that's
beautiful
lovely.
simpatico.
I really love to work with singers who let me in on
Yeah.
stage. They don't, I'm not just the background guy. I'm not just conducting the band. Because, I'm a solo performer and I'm a big
Right.
hand.
Right.
So, and I sing. So, more often than not, those are the gigs that I do. I sing with Christine. I sing with Linda. I certainly sang with Linda Lavin.
Mm.
I mean, I love when I can do that. And also, I do think that collaborative thing creates an ease. I think everybody feels good when they're on stage with somebody that they really get along with. I think it's so much more fun than being up there all by yourself.
Yeah, well, two
So
of my favorite collaborations of yours are with, of course, the brilliant Gabrielle Stravelli and also with Nicholas King, which
yeah,
you're doing a tribute to your mutual muse, if you will, or your mutual
yeah, yeah,
icon,
yeah.
Mel Torme. And you're
Yes,
at 54 Below on March 3rd and 4th, correct?
that's right. That's
Seven
right.
o'clock spots?
7 o'clock spots. It's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. This is a show that we premiered there back in September, right on the occasion of Mel Torme's 100th birthday
Hmm.
anniversary. So we did really well, and so I immediately went to the club and said we wanted to do it. So it's coming up in about 4 weeks, and there are tickets available. I
Good.
want to say it's such a fun show because Nicholas, he's an amazing
He's
performer. And
amazing. From the
yeah,
time he was a little kid, he was amazing.
well, I knew him when he was a little
So
kid.
did I.
I
I
remember.
met him and his grandma and his mom. So,
I remember a night when he came to see when his parents brought him to see Liza, and he was, I think, 5 years old,
aw.
and he was on the front row wearing a little red bow tie, and he caught her eye, and in this, I remember this so well. She said, "Come up on stage," because he was just like, not blinking, just smiling, loving it. He was already the showbiz kid,
Yeah.
and she put him on her knee in the director's chair. And so we talk about that sometimes. It's like, so I've known him since he was 5. And then he
Wow.
started working with Liza as an opening act on occasion when he was, I think, 13 or something crazy like that. Now he's not that young, but he is incredibly talented. And he's certainly a Mel Torme acolyte. Well, he's a fabulous scat singer. He scats rings around me, although I love to do that as well. And it's our mutual love of Mel Torme, I think, that makes this show really special.
Yeah, both he and Gabrielle are what I call organic scatters. They are just an instrument. My bass player, Skip Ward, once said that when he went to see Gabrielle and like her little foot is going in rhythm and that's like
Oh, yeah.
her whole body is part of
Oh, yeah.
her instrument. She's incredible to watch, and you two are so good together. By the way, I'm going to have a link directly to the tickets, direct link right below this interview, so that you can just click there and
Bless,
go and buy tickets
bless your heart.
to
Thank you
this
so
show and to the show that's coming up, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Since we're on the
much.
topic of youngins,
Yeah.
how young were you? Were you a child prodigy, or were you just someone that found music? Did you know you always were going to make your life in music? When did that happen?
Well, I mean, out when I think of a prodigy, I tend to think of more of as like a classical, that old school definition. My parents started giving my two older sisters piano lessons when they were 10 and 14. I was 6. And I was kind of like, well, why can't I have piano lessons? Because we had a piano in the house. I had explored the piano. I was getting on the piano and banging out stuff. So I was very drawn to that from a very young age. And when I was about 8, was when I really figured out that I could learn songs by ear. I would either learn them off records. I remember learning songs by Olivia Newton-John, Barry Manilow, people like that, early 70s. And also, I've heard a lot of other performers around my age, you would have a little tape recorder and you would like record songs off TV, like the Carol Burnett show.
Right.
Or Cher would always sing Cher would always sing a ballad, and more often than not, it was an old standard. I remember at one point she sang "You Made Me Love You," and I said to my mom, I said, "I love that song. Where does that song?" My mom was like, "That song's as old as I am." So that was the first time I was aware that, oh, these songs really were written a long time ago. And I was drawn to the Great American Songbook. I really started digging into that when I was 10 and 11. My grandmother gave me the Gershwin Songbook. Also, it was a great way to get attention, from my peers growing up. And, I had this thing that I could do that no one else could do. So, I was kind of hooked.
Mm-hmm.
I really love performing. I loved going to musicals. My grandmother would take me to musicals and concerts. And so In answer to your final question, it is something I think I always knew I wanted to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
And when did the jazz sensibility start creeping in? I mean, Porter, Berlin, all the guys you mentioned in the American Songbook
Sure.
had jazz light kind of tones. But when did you start interjecting, or did you study jazz with anyone, or did you just start
I
doing
did.
that?
My mother was smart enough, hip enough to get to find a really great piano teacher. We lived outside of Houston in a suburb called Sugarland, but she did some research and she found a guy in Houston who would take on a young students, and he would teach me. Musicians will know, you'll know what I'm talking about. Teach me how to read a lead sheet,
Hmm.
just the melody line with the chords above it, and how to make. You see a C7, how do you make that onto the piano? And that is, once you learn that, then the whole world is open. You learn how to improvise around those things, and then around the same time, as I think a lot of us did, I joined the Columbia Record and Tape Club, where you could get 12 for a
And then you
penny,
get
and then
five
they had
extra, yeah.
exactly, exactly. But I bought one of them was an Oscar Peterson record. One was a Bill. I don't know how I knew that to get those. I think it was just probably from the description. And I spent a lot of time up in my bedroom with the record player listening to jazz piano, basically. And from there, I went on to, Ella Fitzgerald. That sort of came in high school and later. And singing too. I always sang in the church choir, but it wasn't really till I was working piano bars when I was like 17, 18,
Hmm.
that I realized that if I sang the song, if I learned the lyrics and I could sing, I would get tips, so there's nothing like cash in the jar. That's really a real incentive to learn the songs and lead sing-alongs and do all that stuff. So that all happened kind of organically. I always loved the music. The Gershwins were the first, then it went on from there. So
Yeah.
what's so
You're
great about those songs is, you can improvise. Those songs are so well constructed that they will withstand almost any kind of arrangement, and they're perfect for jazz improvisation. Anyway, that's what I
Now
mean by
you
that.
also won, you won a Grammy for an amazing song called "Does He Love You Like I Love You?" and "Does He Love You
Like he loves me, actually.
Like
Yeah,
He
so
Loves
close.
Me?" Reba McEntire
Yeah,
and
that's
Linda
okay.
Davis, right?
Yes, it was a Grammy-winning song in 1993.
But that was
So
in a country
you'll find
realm. I mean, the song isn't
it
twangy country,
was.
but how did that come to be with your background and everything?
Well, the song was not written to be a country song. The song was written for my vocal group, Montgomery Plant and Stritch. It was Sharon Montgomery and Rebecca Plant and Billy Stritch. And we did three-part harmony like Andrew's Sisters, Manhattan Transfer. That was always kind of where we lived musically. And I loved arranging that way. But we also did comedy. And Sandy Knox and I wrote this dramatic ballad, which is between a wife and a mistress.
Hmm.
And that was always our 11 o'clock number whenever we would perform, especially in the gay clubs, because,
Right.
drama, and at the end of the song, they confront each other. And it's really wonderful to watch. So we wrote that back in 1985. It wasn't meant to be a country song, but Sandy, a few years later, moved to Nashville to write country music. And so that song was in her existing catalog. And when Reba McEntire put out the call that she was looking for a two-woman duet, that song got into her hands. So it was really luck. Being the song was someplace, somebody knew about it, somebody remembered it, got it from Sandy's publishing company, got it to Reba. Reba, I think, heard it in the car on a cassette. That's how long ago that was. And called somebody and said, I want to do that song, put a hold on it. 6 weeks later, it was recorded. And a few weeks after that, it was out. The video was out. And then it was #1 on the charts. I mean, it happened really, really fast that year
Yeah.
back in 93. It was incredible how fast it happened.
And there have been so many people who have done it in the
It's been
clubs.
covered a lot.
Yeah.
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 Liza covered it with Donna Summer. Go figure. It's a totally different kind of recording, and talk about drama.
Right.
Uh, Great. Patti LaBelle covered it. It's been covered on award shows and specials by Kelly Clarkson, Martina McBride, Carrie Underwood. And then it was recorded again by Reba 3 years ago with Dolly Parton as her duet partner. So
Yeah, I
how
remember that one
lucky am
too.
I?
Yeah.
that a song has had that kind of life. 29 years later, it was recorded again by Reba. So it's my one and only big hit song as a composer, but it's been very good to
You
me.
still write though. I know that you have several CDs. I think what is like how many CDs do you have out at this point? Like
Well,
five?
I think maybe six, not a lot. I wrote a song that's on my most recent one that was recorded during the pandemic. Sandy and I wrote, and actually we wrote it a long time ago. It's called Since You Left New York. And it was one of those songs we were trying to get recorded. Not much happened to it, but when the pandemic happened and everything in New York shut down, the lyrics all of a sudden made perfect sense
Yeah.
because it's about they turned out the lights on Broadway. They stopped playing jazz in the cabaret. The plaza closed its doors. It's got all this imagery. And it's really about, that's how it seems to me since you went away from New York. But that was literally what was happening in New York. So that's another song I've written. I don't write as much as I probably should.
Well, you're
Um,
so busy. My goodness, you're
yeah,
always.
that's
You
it.
mentioned you're going out of town. Is that a vacation? I hope, or are you working?
No, God, no. Well, Doug, my partner Doug, and I had a vacation last September. We went to Hawaii for 10 days, but I had to plan that months in advance because, if you're a working musician, the gig comes along and you take it,
Right.
and then you get to, all of a sudden years pass and it's like you've never had a real vacation that there wasn't work involved. So no, I mean, I love to travel for work. I don't mind it at all. But this is not a vacation coming
You
up.
just
This is
mentioned Billy's Place. Do you think you'll ever bring that back? I noticed that you post
well,
every now and then. It was so great for all of us to have some place to go and
well,
be with you and be with music, and then it kind of transformed into you doing a lot of gigs with Linda, which we
yeah.
all enjoyed, and watched that relationship get even stronger and more beautiful as time passed and everything.
Yeah,
Tell
well,
me
she
tell
was
me about
living in my.
Billy's Place.
Well, Linda was living in my building, three floors above,
Hmm.
and we were all, it was Linda and Doug and I and our dogs. We were the bubble. That was it.
Yeah.
And Linda would make meals for us and leave them outside our door. And she was the one early on that said, "Let's do something. What can we do?" And no one really had heard of live streaming, but I had heard of, we could go live on Facebook.
Right.
So I think like almost less than a week from shutdown, we started doing these Wednesday afternoon concerts from her apartment on the eighth floor. Doug was the cameraman. And then about 2 months into that, she decided she wanted to take a Wednesday off. And so I took it as a solo. And then that's when I thought, well, why don't I do this myself too? So we grabbed Thursday nights at 8 and we went for 65 weeks and we painted my wall behind me. It's painted now. It's back to beige, but we painted it red. So it looked like you were in a kind of a dark nightclub, and we had the ring lights, and we had lights that could do different colors, and the it was all a learning curve. We could caption it, we could people could call in. It was very primitive, but it was so much fun. And the coolest thing is like what you just said to me. There almost isn't any time that I go out on the road to a gig that somebody says to me, "I watched you during the pandemic. That meant so much to me. We had something to look forward to on Thursday nights." 5 years later, it's really gratifying, and they're all on YouTube to watch. And we have I occasionally think it would be fun to get all that equipment out and do it again, but I just work so much and I travel
Right.
so much. It requires planning. But I'm not totally ruling that out.
Okay,
It
because I
might.
mean, but I'll have the link to your YouTube channel as well, so everyone who's
Yeah, it's
watching this
Billy
interview can go
Stritch.
take a look. They're
Billy,
all great. They're all great.
yeah. If you go there, please subscribe because it's all about numbers. And the shows are great because every week it was a different composer, or it was devoted to a different singer or a genre. And I had a couple of. We did a show on Barry Manilow's birthday, and we got him to call in. I mean, literally, it was like me holding the phone up next to the mic. But with there, and Lucy Arnaz and Melissa Manchester and different people like that would call in on different shows. So it was fun. We were winging it, but it was really fun to put together. It gave me purpose. It gave Doug and I a project,
Mhm.
and it was because there was nothing else to do.
Before we close down, I wanted to talk a little bit about your upcoming Billy and your trio. You're going to be April 17th through 19th. There's a 7 o'clock and a 9:30 show all nights, right?
Correct.
At Birdland.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going to be on the program. What's the gist? Are you just
Well,
doing a best of Billy?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just kind of figuring that out. I'm notorious for waiting until the last minute to put together the set. I'm starting to think about it now. Actually, in August, I'm going to be doing a show devoted to August 3rd is going to be Tony Bennett's 100th birthday. Mm-hmm. So I came up with this idea because I worked with him for a year, actually 11 and a half months, but I'm calling it a year. And it was quite a year. And so I'm doing a show that's going to be called My Year with Tony Bennett in tribute to him. And it's going to be my favorite of Tony Bennett's songs. So it won't be like his hits, right? Maybe a few of them, but he's got such a vast catalog. So I'm probably going to preview some of that in this show coming up in April. Mm-hmm. If you've seen me, you know I love to do those great songwriters, but I like to dig deep and do more obscure tunes that, you know, and a lot of people say, oh God, I love that song. I'd never heard it before. I think that's really so interesting.
I personally love when you go Latin feel. You have such great Latin jazz chops, and a lot of regular jazz people don't delve into the Latin jazz that much, and you're so good at it.
Well, I love the Brazilian music, and back in '97, gosh, almost 30 years ago, 29 years ago, I did an album of Brazilian standards with a full orchestra, and it's called Waters of March. So I've loved that music for a long time, and I feel quite sure I'll be doing one or two bossa nova, samba kind of groove things for sure.
Well, again, I'll have the direct ticket link right below here for those tickets at Birdland. I hope you can join me and everyone else who'll be there, and I have a feeling it's going to sell well, so you might want to go get those quickly. Billy, who would you, Mel Torme aside, because I know that would be your first response, who would you have liked to have played for living or
well, you know, gosh. I mean, I can name any number of the great jazz singers, you know. Of course, we didn't overlap at all, but, you know, I would have loved to have worked with, you know, Ella, of course, you know. Mm-hmm. Carmen McRae is another one of my favorites. Great jazz singer that was maybe a little slightly less known, Mark Murphy.
Mark was so good, yeah.
I actually did meet him a few times, but
Mark and his puffy pirate shirts. Remember those?
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of a kind.
He was one of a kind.
He's one that I wouldn't have mind working with at all. You know, and then from the pop world, you know, I mean, I've met her many times, but I would have loved to maybe have worked with Barbara Streisand. I don't think that's going to happen at this point, but I am mentioned in her book, which is cool. I mean, it's a 1,000-page book, and it's like when it came up, I was like, "Whoa, that's cool!"
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So, but you know, it's a long list of singers. You know, I mean, you know, it's a good question. No one's really asked me that before. So off the top of my head, those are the ones that I think
And who of all the jazz great pianists would you like to have played in front of?
Oh God, the great ones? Nobody. I would have been too scared probably. But you know, I tell you who I loved and I knew who was a great jazz pianist was Cy Coleman. Yeah. I mean, of course, we know him as an award-winning songwriter and great all the songs. But he was a fabulous jazz pianist, and we got to know each other. And he came to my shows, and because we had such an ease with each other, he did not make me nervous. Mm-hmm. And I feel very fortunate that I knew him, and I love doing his music. I may do one of his songs in my show too. So
I think Cy has some of the best jazz harmonics, like chordings and stuff. I mean, no one thought like he did. You know, he's
absolutely
amazing.
One of a kind. Absolutely one of a kind. So that's someone I love that I wasn't nervous playing around. But you know, I don't know. You know, I think I play great chords. I think I'm a good accompanist for myself and for other people. There are other pianists that are more jazz that have chops that can play circles around me. So I don't consider myself to be a top tier jazz pianist, but I think for what I do as an accompanist and a chord guy and all that stuff, I think I'm pretty much at the top of that game. So, you know, everybody stays in their own lane, and that's my lane, and that's where I seem to do well.
I'd be remiss in not mentioning that you continue to work how many years now for Cast Party with the one and only Jim Caruso at Birdland on Monday nights?
Can you believe it'll be 23 years in July?
Can you believe it?
I can't. I took off a couple of years in the middle of it, but for all intents and purposes, it's 22 and a half years. And I love doing the Mondays, because it's a chance for young singers who maybe are in New York for the first time to get on a stage in New York. I love giving them that. It's all about serving the performer, and I'm lucky that I have a great trio, Steve Doyle on bass and Daniel Glass on drums. We all read each other really well, and it's just the joy of making other people sound as good as possible.
See, what you just said there, Billy, is everything to me from a musical director's support point of view, because you are a megastar in your own right, and here you and Steve and Daniel are worried about, oh my God, they went to the bridge instead of back to, letter C or whatever. And you always just move your hands and find them and make them look the best you can. And this is for someone visiting us from Ohio that's never been on a stage before, right up to people like Linda Eder,
And, quite often somebody will get up there and they'll tell me what key they think they sing the song in, and we'll do 2 bars and I'll stop. Yeah. I don't have a problem with that. I'll say, hey, I think this is too low for you, and we'll put it in the right key. Because, what's the point of throwing someone under the bus for 4 minutes when you can change it and we can all make it right.
Well, that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, and it's always fun. You never know what's going to happen on a Monday. And I tell you also, it's really, after doing it all these years and having every kind of music put in front of me, it's made my sight reading chops great. Actually, I never used to be good at that, and now I can pretty much read anything. So I encourage people to come on Mondays to Birdland or wherever we're doing it. We're actually heading to LA next week, Catalina, and we go to Vegas twice a year, and we go to Palm Springs 3 times a year. So if it comes to your town, we're going to Cleveland in a couple of weeks. So Cast Party is a lot of fun, and there's great singing. It's
amazing. You'll have the best time, and it's the most fun of an opening of any show you'll ever go to. Let me just put it that way without giving away any of the trade secrets that we all know.
Sure.
Billy, I cannot thank you. I mean, I could speak to you for 3 hours because we didn't even talk about your 2 Broadway shows with Liza. There's so many other things. You're multi-award winning. You're up for every award again this year as well. You should be. But I just thank you for giving me a little bit of time and for allowing me to let our community know a little bit more about you, and also to publicize these dates. You do not want to miss either of these shows with Nick King at 54 Below or Billy's solo run at Birdland in April. So we'll make sure you get there. And thank you so much for spending some time with me.
And we'll do it again, part 2.
Anytime. Anytime. You have an open invitation, my friend.
It's great to see you. Thank you
so too,
much.
honey. We'll talk soon. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you next time on Sue's Music.